Welcome to this special web edition of Cuse Countdown. We're breaking down Syracuse lacrosse's matchup with Notre Dame. Andrew Scaglione alongside Kevin Ryans and Jared Barton. This is a special weekend because it's the 100th anniversary of Syracuse lacrosse. Got to be a good one in the Dome.
Yeah, 100 years of just excellence for Syracuse lacrosse, and they're hoping to continue that excellence moving on forward in this game and for the rest of the season. A few ACC games left. Let's see if they can get back on track. They've lost the last couple.
I'm pretty sure there's a banquet or something down at the On Center, so it should be a good weekend for Syracuse lacrosse, both fans and alums.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to see if I was invited to that. I don't know why I didn't get an invite.
Yeah, have you ever played lax, Kevin?
Maybe a little bit.
Maybe a little. Well, there's going to be a lot of former players there, so it's certainly going to be a fun weekend in the Carrier Dome. Wasn't a fun weekend for SU down in Durham last week. Let's show you why. Take you back to last weekend. SU and Duke meeting in North Carolina. First, maybe not the last meeting of the season. That'll only time will tell. Serge Salcido, though, opens it up with a ripper to the top of the cage. It's 1-0 early on in the first quarter. Just not even a minute later, frankly. Next position, Scott Fearman runs up, finds Tim Barber, bang, and it's 2-0 Cuse. Great start for the Orange.
Yeah, Sergio Salcido out there making plays. Love it.
Tim Barber's second goal today. This is in the second quarter, and it's already 7-3 SU, but right back the other way. Deemer Class weaves in front. He's one of the top couple scorers in the country, Kevin.
Yeah, and in this particular game, he had 7 goals. Syracuse could not stop him, and that's the reason why Duke was in this game the whole way through.
It was 9-6 Orange at that point, and then Duke started dominating from the faceoff X. And when Ben Williams is losing faceoffs, it's never a good thing for Syracuse.
Now, you don't want to go down the Chris Daddio road. We definitely don't want to see that again.
At that point, 13-10 Syracuse after this Justin Gutterding goal. That took us to the end of the third quarter. So still a good lead for SU heading into the final 15 minutes, but 6.5 minutes to play. More of Syracuse building on that lead. That goal right there tied the game, sent it to overtime. Chad Cohen, however, wins it, and it's, we'll talk about this a little later, the second straight loss in overtime for the Cuse.
Yeah, then not a good sign for Syracuse when you're not taking care of opponents. In this game, Syracuse had leads of 5 3 separate times, and they ended up blowing it and losing in overtime, Jared. And, for the future, they got to figure out how they're going to finish off teams.
And as Skaggs mentioned, just a couple of minutes ago, second time in a row that they've blown the lead and then lost in overtime. It's just not good.
Yeah, Orange dropped to 5-2 now. Huge game from Deemer Class, 7 goals and 2 assists. Let's hear what Coach Desko and a couple players had to reflect on afterwards.
Very much like last week, we didn't learn how to close it out. They started to win some faceoffs, especially after goals, and outscored us 6-1 in the fourth quarter. And we've got to learn to play like that. We've been fortunate early on in the season that we've been winning the faceoffs and be able to keep pressure on the other team's defense with our offense. And today we needed to do a better job of learning how to play when the other team's winning the faceoffs.
I think they just kind of got a hot hand and kind of got rolling there. I mean, they're a good team, obviously, being Duke University, and you kind of expect them to want to fight, and they're going to fight, and they're going to put up a good fight. And we just kind of let them go on a scoring streak there, maybe a little longer than we were hoping, but that's lacrosse, and you just got to learn from it.
Mentally we just got to stay strong. I guess when you tend to have a lead, some people mentally might, feel a little more relaxed, and I think we just got to do a better job of keeping the foot on the gas, not letting people back in the game.
Well, I think that's a very interesting point from Brandon Mullins is, can this team get mentally tougher to close out these games?
Yeah, we mentioned it before. Again, leads of 5. That can't happen when you're winning up by that many points 3 different times. You cannot let that lead slip away, and maybe it's going to have to come down maybe some extra practices, especially outside, because the last couple games have been outside. They've lost both of them. They've struggled too defensively. Can they figure it out a way to work on that tough last game situations to be able to win ball games?
Yeah, it's all about focus, and that's something that the team didn't have the last 2 games, especially there at the end. You can't give up mentally or physically, and that's exactly what they did. If your foot's on the gas pedal, definitely don't take it off, because you're going to let teams that are good at coming back get right into it, and you're going to end up losing.
Well, listen, these 2 games weren't against cream puffs at home either. 2 top 10 teams on the road. Let's show you the other game they lost to in overtime, to Johns Hopkins. So again, two losses back-to-back. 1 week apart, both in overtime, but both on the road. So it's a tough back-to-back. You know SU can play with these teams, and you know from those games they can beat them.
You said, though, on the road, and that can't be an excuse because you had such a lead. You know what I mean? It'd be one thing if they came back and brought it into overtime themselves on the road, but you were taking care of business against two very good lacrosse programs while you were away, and you didn't finish. You have to be able to finish and go out there, and if you don't, you're going to see a lot of losses here. There's a couple more games that are tough down the road here for the Syracuse Orange, and they're going to have to step it up just a little bit if they want to get some wins.
Yeah, and I'm going to look to the second half performances from you guys like Dylan Donahue, guys like Sergio Salcido, Tim Barber. They have to go out and they have to continue to score. First half they were doing really well against Duke. Second half you saw on the the graphic before 9-4 they were outscored. I think that's a very important telling sign that they're not getting those shots. They're not going after the net in the second half, and it's really hurting them.
And back in the friendly confines of the Carrier Dome this weekend, taking on Notre Dame. We'll give you a little preview of that one right now. What is one thing or one player, Kevin, that you think is going to be very important for SU to get back on the winning track this weekend?
Well, one thing I got to look at is whether the SU defense can really polish itself, especially late in games. The problem with SU's defense is they're not really sliding very well, not getting to the positions to be able to contain goal scorers. So Deemer Class was able to have 7 goals. Now, Deemer Class is a terrific lacrosse player in his own right, but I don't think he's 7 goals good, and that's a problem. So I know they wanted to focus on Miles Jones, but you got to contain guys like that. Can they do that? Can the SU defense really step up late in games? Can they step up against really good goal scorers and limit them so they can win ball games, especially late in them, as we mentioned before?
My X factor is going to shift over to the offense. I think Sergio Salcido needs to keep up the offensive production. The guy had 4 goals against the Duke Blue Devils. If you don't score those 4 goals, well, then you're probably not even in a position to have a lead. So he was huge in that game. He's had 6 goals in the last 2 weeks, so 2 against Johns Hopkins as well. Again, if you don't score those goals, you're probably not in a lead situation, and you would have to come back. So. Yeah, he needs to score. That's what I take out of it. And if he doesn't score, as he's been one of the hot hands in the last few weeks, if he doesn't score, this team's going to have problems.
Yeah, you got to ride him and his hot hand coming back to the Carrier Dome. Is it, though, Kevin, going to be a good homecoming for the whole Syracuse lacrosse family? They're going to see a win this weekend?
They'll see a win. I think being back here in Syracuse is going to help a little bit because they love being home. So Syracuse is going to win 13-12. One of the things I'm going to look for is, can they close out late in the game? I think it's going to be one of those tight ones. Syracuse may have a lead late, and then they may give up a couple, like in an Army game when they had a lead and they gave up a few to Army and got back in it. I think Notre Dame Fighting Irish are going to get back in this one, but late in the game they're going to make a few quick stops, and that's going to help them prevail. 13-12 is my final score.
Now, for me, I'm going to go with Notre Dame taking this victory. 14-11 is the final score. This could be potentially a game where they get back in it and get back on, on track, on the winning track. But this is probably the best team in the nation coming into the Dome. Yeah, it's at home, so you have that sort of advantage. But this is a very, very good lacrosse program in Notre Dame. So look for them to give them even more troubles than the last 2 weeks. And especially if they get off to a bad start, it's not going to be pretty.
SU's 5-2 heading into that game, and it is at 5 p.m. on Saturday. Nice little appetizer for the Final Four as well. You can follow us on Twitter at Citrus TV Sports for all the coverage all weekend long. For Kevin and Jared, I'm Andrew. Enjoy the 100th anniversary of Syracuse lacrosse.